What is going on, guys? Coach Tim here with Fit Couple Coaching. Been a little bit of a break on YouTube's, but we're bringing back our weekly segments of Ask a Christian Strength Coach featuring yours truly. And we're also going to bring a segment called Ask a Fit Couple featuring my beautiful wife. So she can give you a little bit of the female perspective on all of this stuff. So if you don't know me, if you're new to the channel, I am Coach Tim, one of the co-founders of Fit Couple Coaching. I am a nutritionist. I am a strength and conditioning specialist. A CSC has all these fancy letters, master's in sports nutrition, as well as a bachelor's degree in exercise physiology. I've been coaching for over 15 years, and I've worked for everybody from children all the way up to Olympic athletes and professional athletes, aka NBA strength coaching for the Sacramento Kings. So I've been around the block, coached hundreds, if not over 1,000 at this point, individuals to their strongest, best self in strength, conditioning, fat loss, hypertrophy, all the fun stuff. And guess what? Most of the people I work with are your just everyday person, not the Olympic athlete, not the pro athlete, the person that works 40 to 60 hours a week, has a job, has kids, has a spouse, and has real life stuff going on. So what I want to do with this segment is to hopefully answer some of your questions. I've had a ton of questions come in over the last month and a half since I haven't done one of these. So I've kind of curated 5 really hard-hitting questions today that hopefully you guys can gain a little bit of insight and apply this to your daily lives to get where you guys want to go. But without further ado, we're going to dive in. So I've chosen 5 questions. I tend to ramble, so I want to keep this fairly short, and I will do my best, I promise. So the first question is, what happens when you want to get fit, lose body fat, gain muscle, etc., and your partner or your spouse does not? Now, this is a really common thing that we deal with in obviously Fit Couple Coaching. When you have one person that's all on board, really wants to make a change, the other person's like, nah, I'm cool. And the way that I think about this, the way I coach this through is very simple, is we don't worry about them yet, right? You need to focus on what you need to do. If your goal is to, let's say, I'm just using just a random goal here, you need to lose 20, 25 pounds of body fat. Your health is poor, your energy is poor, your confidence is poor. The analogy that I use a lot is you got to fill your cup first, right? You ever been on an airplane flight where they tell you, they go through the whole safety spiel and then they give the pamphlet out with the oxygen mask and they're like, in case of an emergency, you have to put on your own oxygen mask first before taking care of the person next to you. And the reason they give that analogy is because you ain't no good if you're dead or if you're unconscious. So it's the same thing when it comes to your fitness. And what I tend to see is we structure a plan, nutrition, training, lifestyle, accountability, etc., for the person that has the goal, that has the driving motivation for this. And as they start to walk through reaching their goal, they're starting to make some very tangible progress, right? First, like 6, 8 weeks, a lot of things are changing. They're eating differently, their energy is different, their sleep is different, their mood is different, their body is starting to change. The other person starts to get a little bit more curious and a little bit more open to the idea because they're seeing the tangible results in front of them, like, hey, this works, and this person's clearly feeling and looking better. Maybe it's worth investing in this myself. And what I really see generally is it's generally the spouse, like the wife, that starts first. And after a period of time, I don't know if it's competitiveness or what it is, but the masculine ego just can't take that. So a lot of times the husband will jump in and be like, hey, me too, because I can't be having her looking all sexy and me over here looking like a dad bod. So my main advice to this person asking the question is, don't worry about the other person. I mean, that sounds like an incredibly selfish thing to say, but don't worry about them not wanting that goal. It is your goal for a reason. And when they get to that place where it becomes a goal for them, then they're much more likely to step up and actually do something about it. But if they're being forced or coerced into it, those tend to be the people that fall off the quickest. There's no real dog in the fight for them. And every time they have an obstacle or a craving or they feel sore or tired, they're always going to throw up excuses. So don't worry about that. Like, focus on you, do you, boo, and let them come to that conclusion for themselves. And in the meantime, just support them, right? Love them the same as you love them anyway. Don't treat them any differently. It's almost just like by leading by example versus leading by, do what I tell you to do. It's like with your kids, right? They much more is caught than taught. It's more of just, leading by example and having them just follow suit. So good question, very good question. All right, question number two. What do you do when your partner keeps bringing junk food to the house? I wonder if this is the same exact person. And also, again, very, very similar like setup, right? You have one person that's all locked into their nutrition, and another person is bringing in, tacos and pizza and ho-hos and Oreos. I don't know what y'all eat. That's just what tends to come up in my brain when I think of junk food. Um, what do you do? Again, you're not a child. Nobody's forcing you to freaking eat this stuff. If they bring junk food in, cool, let them eat the junk food. You made a commitment to yourself. You need to follow through with what you said you were going to do. And every time you follow through with what you said you were going to do for you, you build something super important, which is trust in yourself and your own ability to follow through, which is more important than a freaking diet, more important than a training program, anything. It's having trust in who you are as a person and that you're going to do what you said you were going to do in the first place. So I always joke with my clients, like, no, um, mommy didn't sit you down and make you eat the Oreos. You did that on your own. Just because they bring it in doesn't mean you have to like succumb to that temptation. And quite frankly, I guess I don't have a hell of a lot of empathy for this because I'm around people that eat junk food all the time, being a competitive bodybuilder. Like, it's just like a switch on and off in my brain. I either have it or I don't have it. It's not because anybody talked me into it. And I think that's the thing you need to internalize is you are a big boy or a big girl and you are in charge of what goes in your mouth. Social like pressure means nothing. Familiar pressure means nothing. It is simply just following through with what you said you were going to do. And I'll give you a very good example. If you were a vegan and someone was brought meat into the house, would you eat the meat? Especially if they're like, oh, come on, one bite's not going to kill you. No, you wouldn't. It's because it's not who you are. And so we need to stop thinking about food as like, oh, this is like the junk food that the cheap food that I secretly want, but I can't have. First of all, you can have whatever the hell you want. You are choosing to eat this way. And the real crux behind this is it's not about your choices, it's about what you identify as. Like, do you want to eat the good food only for the goal of looking better? Or do you want to be somebody who is healthy, has good body composition, who has energy, who can do the things they want to do, have the confidence that they want? And in route to being that person, you eat a certain way. Just like there are clear reasons that a vegan chooses not to eat meat or meat products. It's not because, well, sometimes it's because they don't like it, but there are some moral and ethical reasons behind behind their decision not to eat. Right. For you, the moral and ethical reasons is like, it's not who I am. It's not what I'm all about. I'm all about treating this temple with respect and stewarding my body well. And so when someone brings junk food in, it shouldn't even be a thought in your head. You need to like that is just a no-go. It's the same as if they brought cyanide into the house. You're not going to eat that, right? So I'm kind of hard-nosed on this. Like, I don't really have empathy for it because no one has ever in the history of dieting tied me down and like put food in my mouth. Or has anybody said something to me that made me think like, oh, like I really need to please them with the way that I eat? Like, I find that very silly. Like, that never works in any other context, just in food for some reason. So I don't know. That's how I think about that. I would simply be like, hey, that ain't my junk food. That's you. That ain't me. All right, moving on. I'm tired of being mean and angry. All right, so next one. What is the best diet for couples trying to lose weight together right now? So there is no such thing as a best diet. There is the diet that you will follow, right? So I live a certain lifestyle. I work predominantly from home. I'm able to get a lot of steps in per day. I average 12,000 or more per day. I train 5, 6 days a week. It's not really a problem for me, but my lifestyle is very flexible. I work with clients online. I do teaching and education stuff on top of that. But by and large, I'm not locked into a 9 to 5 job. So my diet can be very around my schedule. But if you're somebody who has to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you've got to train first thing in the morning, or else it's not going to get done. And then you've got to go clock in to work by 7. You've got to work an 8 to 10 hour day, and then come home. You've got family responsibilities. Kids got sports. Obviously, you got to spend some time with the spouse. Your diet, it needs to check a few boxes, right? It needs to, if you're trying to lose weight, it has to put you in a calorie deficit, right? You have to be consuming less food than you're burning, or else you won't lose weight just by definition. It has to have adequate dietary protein, meaning we have to have enough protein so that way as we're losing body weight, we're not losing skeletal muscle mass, right? Which for most people is around 1 gram of protein per pound that you weigh. For females, it's about a gram per pound that you're of your goal weight. That's the simplest way to calculate it there. Other than that, a lot of it's just freaking preference and sustainability, right? So for me, I do tend to feel better, perform better when I have a few more carbohydrates in my plan versus if I was to go more low carb keto style. I'm not going to train as effectively. And for me, I just freaking like carbs. So I like rice in my plan. I like oatmeal. I like fruit. So those other calories that are left once I've accounted for the protein, I'm going to put a lot of those carbohydrates in my plan and I'm going to keep the fat a little bit lower. Mind you, I'm still adhering to a calorie deficit. But if I was someone who loved steak, eggs, bacon, like things like that, I might allocate more of those calories for fat calories and have fewer carbohydrates or none, depending on my preference, right? As long as we're following the rule of, are we in a calorie deficit and are we getting adequate protein? The rest is like that makes up about 80% of dietary like outcomes. The other bit of that is sustainability and preference, right? So, and we're not talking about the performance side. This is just simply for body fat loss. So, in all honesty, find a system and a structure that fits your freaking life. And I would argue fits your life when it's the most hectic. When you are the business, how are you getting those meals and snacks in? How are you getting the dietary protein? How are you adhering to a calorie goal? Are you tracking it through MyFitnessPal? Have you written out a diet plan? Are you doing things like this to make sure you're consistent for a long period of time? Because that's actually what makes a massive change. It's not 1 week in a crazy diet. It's 12, 16, 20 weeks in a very consistent diet where you're losing 1% of your body weight per week. And that's the simplest way that I can go about what's the best diet for your couple. And yours, honestly, might look different than your partner's. She might have a different kind of life schedule. So maybe I'll sync up and only have dinner together, but the rest of the meals, it's completely independent because you have to meet your needs and she has to meet hers. So I don't want to get too into the weeds, but if you have a question on this, for sure, just comment below and we can have a chat one-on-one. This is literally what we do for a living. So rolling on. All right. Is high protein actually necessary for both partners? And this is kind of I guess, in tandem with the last question. Yes, it is. It is necessary. And necessary, that's a freaking loaded word. If you want to lose body fat and retain skeletal muscle, you should be eating high protein. But now I think it's important to define what high protein is. Now, high protein, in my opinion, and there's been plenty of studies that camp them differently. So this isn't a scientific explanation. This is just averages, is around that zero point 0.8 to 1.2, 1.3 grams of protein per pound that you weigh. So I'm roughly 240 pounds. So a gram of protein per day would be about 240 grams of protein, which is like middle of the bell curve when it comes to high protein diets. That's more than likely adequate. I personally, I have a crazy high appetite, so I eat a little bit more than that. I eat closer to 1.3. So right now I'm consuming about 280, 275, 280 grams of protein per day. And that's coming from whole food sources such as egg whites, whole eggs, whey protein isolate, chicken, turkey, lean ground beef, things of that nature. Actually, not things of that nature. That's literally the protein sources I eat. There's nothing else on top of that. So that's the main sources. I'm eating 6 times a day. I'm getting roughly 40 grams of protein per meal that I'm eating. And then obviously on top of that, there's going to be little bits of protein that are found in your rice, found in your oatmeal. So that's how I get 240 grams of like true like animal complete protein sources in my plan. Plus I'm getting that extra 35-ish grams that just fall into place through the vegetables, the fruit, and the starches that I'm consuming throughout the day, the almond butter, things like that. So it is very important for both people, females included. And it's actually just as important for females as it is males. Just because you're female doesn't mean that you have different physiological needs when it comes to nutrition as males do. You just don't need as much total calories, and that's generally a function because you don't weigh as much. So my wife, on the other hand, Alicia, she's 135 pounds. So if she ate 270 grams of protein, she'd have diarrhea like crazy. But no, so she's eating roughly 130 to 140 grams of protein per day. So it's the same exact math equation. It's just reduce it down because she's a smaller human. So moving on. All right. So next one, how many calories should each partner eat? All right. So I'm going to assume this is in the context of a diet because I did ask the question of like, what do you guys need help with when it comes to dieting? So this one, it is I can't give a specific answer for like a generalization of how many calories you eat, but I can give you a great way to assess and calculate your starting macros. First off, you can go on Google and you can type in like the Harrison Benedict equation, and it'll prompt you with a bunch of questions: your gender, your age, your height, your weight, and it'll and also your activity level, and it'll spit out how many calories you should be consuming on a daily basis. But if you don't want to do that, on average, here's what I tend to see that the cheater way to find your starting point of calories is to find your maintenance calories for men. It tends to be your body weight times about 14 or 15, depending on if you're an active individual or a fairly sedentary individual. So let's just use a 200-pound man, just so I can make math super simple. 200 pounds times 10 is what, 2,000 times 5. That's what is that? 3,000 calories if he was going to multiply by 15. So that would be his maintenance calories, how many calories he needs to consume in order to stay the same. From there, we want to establish a calorie deficit, meaning we need to bring that down so that way he's consuming fewer calories than his burn. So I like to start with a simple 500 calorie deficit on the front end. So I'll take that 3,000, I would subtract 500, that would put him at 2,500 calories as a starting point for his nutrition. Now, if we already know the rule of a gram of protein per pound, that same man is going to consume 200 grams of protein, which is 800 calories-ish. Protein is about 4 calories per gram. So 4 times 200 is 800. So we know that right off the rip, what is that? We've got 1,700 calories remaining after we remove the protein calories. So those can be split up between carbs and fat. And that's where I would start. And I would just I would eat that consistent calorie load with that consistent protein load for the first week. And then I would track my body weight on a daily basis. Now, this is going to tell you what's happening in real time. Because if you are not losing weight, you're staying the same, you're like, cool, I need to bring it down further. And in that case, I would take it down another 10%. So I'd knock off 250 more calories from that, bring it down to 2,250. And I would track weight to make sure I'm losing right around 1% of my body weight per week. So for that same 200-pound man, it's about 2 pounds a week. Now, let's say the opposite occurs, you gain weight on that, which means generally speaking that you're metabolically a little compromised, and it might not be the best time for you to start a diet. We might have to do some reverse dieting first, but I digress. Let's pretend you don't. Let's say you're just gaining some body weight initially. Okay, we might have to correct even further and bring it down another 500. We need to just slowly titrate the calories down so that way we are losing that 1% of body weight per week. The same equation for women holds true, but I tend to see a shift down just a touch. Maintenance tends to be around 13 times body weight for females. That's the only change, but you would follow the same exact structure. You would multiply your weight by 13, then you reduce it by, for females, I tend to only reduce about 300, just because their total calories aren't as high. So bringing down 300, and then from there, track weight for 7 days. What does your weight do? Adjust accordingly to make sure you are losing about 1% of your body weight per week. All right, last question, and I saved this one for last for a reason. How do you structure, and I'm talking to us specifically, a 12-week transformation plan? There is a lot that goes into this, so I'm going to give you guys like the 30,000-foot overview. First thing we do is we want to make sure we have a good conversation with the person. We want to understand what their goals are, not just how much body weight they want to lose, not just the body composition change that they want, but like, what do they want out of it? Like, is it because they're getting ready for an event? Are they running a 5K? Are they, sorry, half marathon? Are they doing a physique competition? Do they have a photo shoot? Are they going on vacation? Are they getting married? That's a big one that we see a lot, is like, hey, I've got a wedding coming up and I want to look real good for them photos. So we establish what the actual goal is. We want to dial that in and make sure that that's locked in. From there, I reverse engineer away from that how long that's going to take. So let's pick a goal that is actually doable in 12 weeks. Let's say Sally, I'm just using a random name. Sally needs to lose, let's say 15 pounds. And she has a wedding coming up in 12 weeks. Cool, she wants to lose 15 pounds. She's got to lose about probably 4% body fat. But she also wants to tone up her shoulders, etc. She wants to, tone up the midsection. These are all just things I normally hear. Okay, cool. So we know the endpoint is doable in 12 weeks. So then we just reverse back the timeline of what markers do we need to hit by month 1, month 2, and then finally to hit that last goal at month 3, right? Which would give us that 12-week outcome. So if we're taking that same 15 pounds, we know she needs to lose 5 pounds by the time we get to end of month 1, 10 pounds by month 2, leading into 15 pounds by the end of 12 weeks. So once I have that reverse engineering done, then I would calculate the caloric needs, the macronutrient needs, and I would build that around her lifestyle. So during this conversation, I would be asking a bunch of questions about what does she normally do on a day, like walk me through the day, what time do you get up, what time do you eat breakfast, what time do you go to work, what time do you tend to work out, what does your weekends normally look like? Are they different? Are you somebody who, is traveling a lot? Like, I want to gather as much information as I can to make sure that the diet plan matches her actual lifestyle so she can freaking stick with it. And so once that's dialed in, she's got the proper nutrition plan, the proper structure around her day. Then I'm gonna come up with the actual training program for her. And so this is going to have to fit a couple buckets. Number one, has to accomplish the goal that she wants, right? So it's got to be built and specified for the outcome that she wants. If she wants to, let's say she wants to tone her midsection, she wants more defined arms, she wants to tone up the legs a little bit. These are all just language that I hear. Of course, her program should most likely be biased towards resistance training with an emphasis on the body part areas that she really wants to improve upon. It doesn't mean I'm not going to balance it out with the other things that she needs just to be a healthy, athletic human being, but I do want to put some special sauce on the areas that she really wants to bring up. Now, once the plan is built, she's got the training plan, she's got the nutrition plan, and mind you, I am giving a super fast flyby version of this. This generally takes me 2 to 3 days to put all of this together. Then we start, right? And I'm walking with her, hand in hand. We're talking every single day. I'm adjusting the plan if need be. I'm giving correction as far as if she has questions or form is off on her workouts or she runs into problems like, hey, me and my husband are going out to eat and this is the restaurant. What do I order? Cool. We're walking through all that stuff as well too. And then at the end of week 1, she will turn in a check-in form to me with progress photos and all the fun stuff. And I assess what happened in real time during that first week. And then I adjust the plan to make sure that she's making the progress that we want to make to hit that goal of 5 pounds down in month 1 and ultimately 2, and then ultimately the total goal by the end of the week. Or end of the 12 weeks. If I'm doing that every single week and she's following suit, I'm saying she, because we said wedding. If she's executing every single week, I'm adjusting on a weekly basis, we can almost ensure that she will hit that goal by the end of the time frame that we've allotted to hit the goal. It really just comes down to execution and adjustment and accountability around making sure that she's continuing to progress in the right direction. So that is the simplest way I can explain the all-intensive process that we do here at Fit Couple Coaching. If you guys have any questions at all, obviously comment below. You can find us on Iron into Christ on Instagram, or my wife's is Fit Couple for Christ with the letter 4. I'll put those in the description below too. But if you guys are curious about how this whole thing works, or if you have specific goals that we can help you with, for sure, go ahead and drop a comment below, shoot us an email, even go visit our website, fitcoupleu.com, and we will absolutely have that conversation and see what that would look like. So without further ado, hope you guys have an awesome, awesome day, and I will see you next time.
Let's go.